Hello ladies and gents, Hagbard Celine here on another beautiful afternoon, and today I'm going to explain what drew me to using the moniker Hagbard Celine. I've been dismissive of the question, not wanting to go into depth in favor of flippancy and digestibility. Often people have theorized on it one way or the other, and often in the most shallow or literal ways. Either his financial wealth, supposed power, or the whimsical anarchic principles surrounding the character. I can assure you, while I have the libertarian leanings implied there, I'm no anarchist. I realized in my youth the same thing that Robert Anton Wilson realized in his day. Anarchism is impractical. As for his wealth, it was as an ironic veneer for the fictitious character as it is for myself. I am not of the higher class, and I'm not wealthy in any capacity, so I chose the airs of wealth and opulence in a somewhat tongue-in-cheek manner. As for power, aside from the power I have over my own life and my own affairs, I desire almost no other power. And any power further would be imposed upon me, as it was imposed on the fictitious character in his capacity as the de facto leader of the Discordians. An honor that he rapidly passed on at the first sign that someone else among them had a greater understanding, in this case a teenage girl. His main source of income was shipping heroin for the Mafia, not a trade he was proud of, aside from ensuring that the product was of the highest quality with no dangerous adulterants. He expressed openly that the US could and should put him out of business in one pen stroke by regulating and legalizing the industry, something I've been saying about cartels for years. For some of the ideas that stuck with me, Wilson through Hagbard expresses one key principle repeatedly and in several variations, and this is essentially the first thing that attracted me to the character. Belief is the death of intelligence. When dogma enters the brain, all intellectual activity ceases. I don't believe in anything, but I have many suspicions. And only the madman is absolutely sure. This to me serves as an inoculation against so many extremist ideologies, as it seems to have served him well from going down any of these authoritarian paths. Because that is arguably the only thing most people should be afraid of, the willful imposition of another's reality upon one's own, especially if that's backed by force. This is what most people seek to avoid. Well, those that don't seek to be the ones imposing, of course. Another character trait I sought to imitate is the principles he used guiding and running his submarine and organization. It was a wide tent, with one unifying goal: to stop them from immanentizing the eschaton, whatever that means to you. Anarchists, black flag commies, hyper-capitalists, everyone was welcome as long as they agreed to cooperate and settle their differences internally, even if that means a couple bloodied noses, as he says. A few more bloodied noses and there might be fewer wars. His understanding is that a war is from the festering wounds of unresolved conflict. Hagbard seemed to serve as the mouthpiece for the author quite directly, so this next couple of quotes will serve as a transition into some of the concepts espoused by Wilson elsewhere and my personal application of his ideas to modern politics and social interaction. They can't rule legitimately, but they can rule by fraud, and by fraud eventually acquire the access to the tools they need to finish off the job of killing the Constitution. What sorts of tools? More stringent security measures, universal electronic surveillance, no-knock laws, stop and frisk laws, government inspection of first-class mail, automatically fingerprinting, photographing, blood testing, and urinalysis of any person arrested before he's even charged with the crime. A law making it unlawful to resist even unlawful arrest. Laws establishing detention camps for potential subversives. Gun control laws. Restrictions on travel. The assassinations, or in this case terrorism, you see, establish the need for such laws in the public mind. Instead of realizing that there is a conspiracy being conducted by a handful of men, the people reason, or are manipulated into reasoning, that the entire population must have its freedom restricted in order to protect the leaders. The people agree that they, themselves, cannot be trusted. And the Constitution admittedly has a few defects and blemishes, but it still seems a hell of a lot better than whatever system we have now. It only takes 20 years for a liberal to become a conservative without changing a single idea. And how right that last one is, I have found. Even directly quoting the most quote-unquote radical characters of the 1970s today often leaves me in a place where it's viewed as conservative or old. The libertarian ideals are even more unpopular on Wilson's native left today than they were on his accursed right. At this point, the previous quotes can elicit sneers, and some would literally spit the word constitutionalist at you. In a passage from Hagbard Celine's supposed political treatise, he epitomizes the struggle with being human in modernity, struggling to avoid the pitfalls and unneeded simplifications of categorization, as well as the frustrations inevitably occurring between people we would call social engineers. This quote is the constant chafing against labels that I see from so many people in my life. The most thoroughly, relentlessly damned, banned, excluded, condemned, forbidden, ostracized, ignored, suppressed, repressed, robbed, brutalized, and defamed of all these damned things is an individual human being. The social engineers, the statisticians, psychologists, sociologists, market researchers, landlords, bureaucrats, captains of industry, bankers, governors, commissars, kings, and presidents are perpetually forcing this damned thing into carefully prepared blueprints, and perpetually irritated that this damned thing will not fit into the slot assigned it. The theologians call it a sinner and try and reform it. The governor calls it a criminal and tries to punish it. The psychologist calls it a neurotic and tries to cure it, but still this damn thing will not fit into their slots. In regards to the ever-changing face of censorship and the discussion around free speech we've been having online as well as in the real world, I offer this insight. A monopoly on the means of communication may define a ruling elite more precisely than the celebrated Marxian formula of a monopoly on the means of production. Since man extends his nervous system through the channels of communication like the written word, the telephone, radio, etc., he who controls these media control parts of the nervous system of every member of society. The contents of these media become parts of the contents of every individual's brain. Thus, in pre-literate societies, taboos on spoken word are more numerous and more draconic than at any more complex level of social organization. With the invention of the written word, hieroglyphic, ideographic, or alphabetical, the taboos are shifted to this medium. There's less concern with what people say and more concern with what people write. Some of the first societies to achieve literacy, such as those in Egypt and Mayan culture of ancient Mexico, evidently kept this knowledge of hieroglyphics a religious secret, which only the higher orders of the priestly royal families were allowed to share. The same process repeats endlessly. Each step forward in the technology of communication is more heavily tabooed than the earlier steps. Thus, in America today, post-Lenny Bruce, one seldom hears of convictions for spoken blasphemy or obscenity. Prosecution for books still continues, but higher courts are increasingly interpreting these laws in a liberal fashion, and most writers feel fairly confident that they can publish virtually anything. Movies are growing almost as decentralized as books, although the fight is still heated in this area. Television, the newest medium, remains encased in a Neolithic taboo. When a more efficient medium arrives, the taboos of television will decrease, and the taboos will shift to this medium. Not like we're experiencing that today. And finally, everyone has a belief system, or BS. The trick is to learn to not take anyone's BS too seriously, especially your own. And so delivered in the same meandering, stumbling, malformed manner that Wilson often seems to favor, these are the basic reasons I've chosen Hagbard specifically and chosen to promote a good deal of Wilson's thinking in general through this name and some of my ideas. I obviously don't agree with everything he's ever written, but hey, that's one of the rules, so at least I'm consistent. Thanks for listening, everyone, and that's all for me today. I look forward to some of my streams starting Monday, January 22nd, around noon, maybe, on my Twitch. I lost my PayPal, so don't bother donating or they will just keep the money. Long story short, I was banned without being given a reason. As usual, stay safe, good luck, and goodbye.